We are so honored to welcome the radiant and revolutionary Joyell to our space. She is a birth worker, storyteller, and advocate rooted in ancestral wisdom. Through birth work, community care, and cultural connection, she uplifts the sacred path of parenting and healing with grace and fierce love. Let's give the warmest welcome as she joins us for this beautiful conversation. Welcome to our podcast.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you. We've known each other for a while, so I'm glad we're getting to collaborate and have this conversation today. I am many different things, but I resonate the most right now with being a traditional midwife. I'm also apprenticing as a midwife in a MEEC accredited program to get my license. I'm also a writer. I'm a medicine woman. I am a legal advocate. And most of all, I just really love people.
Also an artist.
I am an artist. I'm claiming that now. I've had 3 residencies, and I think it's time that I start claiming the artist part of me, not just with my writing, but also just with how I do my birth work. I do see birth as an ancestral art form. I do see it as something that's very intuitive, but also creative, depending on how you work with it, including like culinary arts. And of course, visual arts, music, land, gardening, healing arts, like all the arts. I also play instruments. I played saxophone. I played saxophone since I was 10. And then I've been learning the kora, which comes from Senegal and Mali. And I've also been teaching myself guitar because I love string instruments because, ancestral things. I love to paint. I do stippling. Yeah, I do all kinds of. I definitely live my life as an artist, even if I'm not putting out like product like as you would expect an artist. To know me is to know that I'm also an artist because of my birth work and the spiritual side that flows out of that.
And we can see that on social media. Like when I go through your social media, it's just so beautiful how you take photos. You are just beautiful as a person. What inspired you to pursue midwifery?
I didn't pursue it. It actually pursued me, actually. I am one of those few people that I didn't see this as a calling early on. I was told by elders in my family that, like, you're gonna like carry on this tradition, right? Because my great aunt, she loved children, she loved, pregnant women, she supported them in many different ways, and so did all the matriarchs in my family. They all just love birth. My grandmother gave birth at home, like it was just a natural thing. And at a young age, I was tapped to like just start apprenticing and learning the different ways of being a traditional midwife. And so I just thought it was like almost like a hobby that you just kind of do, of like, I'll do this, but I'll also have like a real career, right? So that's why I pursued law school. I also thought I was going to be a professor of Black literature and history at one point, which I still might. I love that. So I have been in birth work for 21 years, but it wasn't until 5-6 years ago when I realized like, oh, I think I need to like really go after midwifery, especially being in Maryland. It's wild out here.
It is.
I haven't had any losses in my 21 years, but they had some experience and I was like, this isn't right. And like, where are the midwives? Where are the trusted doctors? Like, where's the trusted system? And then it was like, Joyell, you have to become that. I really wanted to be traditional, Lauren. I really did. But again, Maryland.
Some of our listeners are not familiar with midwives. There are so many different types of midwives. There are midwives who serve in hospitals, midwives who serve in birth centers, and midwives who serve home births. So can you explain what a traditional midwife is?
Oh, yeah. So traditional midwifery, I think, is more than just catching babies, but that's where most people understanding comes from. Traditional midwifery is essentially this practice of being taught at a very young age the ways of womanhood, including menstruation, of course, pregnancy, childbirth, menopause, as well as death. And so at a young age, especially in the African tradition, young girls would be tapped like I was to be like, you need to learn this, or like there's something about you that like this may be your mantle to carry the family forward. And their mothers, grandmothers, great aunts, or whatever would teach them. Like they would teach them by bringing them along to births. They would teach them like the different herbs to plant. Like, that's how I learned herbalism. I learned it because that's what these healers and these women in my family taught. And that comes with traditional midwifery too, of like learning how to use different elements to support the body, because essentially they were doctors without degrees. And so they knew everything about um, not just the woman's body, but like all bodies, and how to care for them, how to heal them naturally without medical interventions, how to turn babies with their hands, how to do pain management without Western medications. They also knew a lot about care. You know, what we call doula now is what was part of traditional midwifery. This idea that you're not just there to catch the baby, but you're there to cook. You know, you're there to offer comfort measures. You're there postpartum all the time to make sure they have what they need, to clean their home, to be a counselor, to be someone they can confide in, to teach them about themselves now that they've gone through this rite of passage. So traditional midwifery was a very and is a very big deal in our community, because they were our moral compasses, and they knew more about health, but also the spiritual world than a lot of people did. We wouldn't have these professions of being a doula, lactation consultant, childbirth educator, um, nurse, midwife. We wouldn't have all of those professions if it wasn't for these traditional midwives, which is something I often teach in my classes, because somehow that gets lost. And some people also demonize traditional midwives today as like unintelligent, or they didn't have skills. But literally everything we know about obstetrics and care, and how to have successful maternal health and infant health comes from these practices. I wanted to stay, like, I don't want to be beholden to an institution. I want to support women in the ways that I know how, and not have to feel like I need a certification to do that. But then in the world we live in, it's like, all right, times are different. Times have changed. If I want to serve more families, I need to protect myself. And so, yeah, I made the decision a few years ago to start doing more formalized training now that the elders that I apprenticed with have passed. And now I'm in midwifery school with the intent of becoming a certified professional midwife who also blends her traditional midwifery with it.
There was this midwife that I got an opportunity to just be in space with, and she came from this understanding of being traditional in her own way, although she was in the hospital setting. That was a gift to the people that she supported, because we were doing things kind of behind scenes to help baby move. And I think without that ideology, the person's birth would have never been the way that it ended up. We really do need people who can bring that to those other spaces. Where do you see yourself supporting birth? Is it at the hospital? Is it at home? Is it at a birth center?
That's the big question. That's the big question. I don't know. I don't see it as the hospital right now. I've attended many births in hospitals, but now part of me thinks I'll be a home birth midwife for a little bit, while also building some type of birth center and postpartum clinic. I think is my dream, is to have somewhere in Maryland that's accessible to the Eastern Shore as well, is to have a place that, yes, you can come give birth, right? And I want people to have a place that they can come give birth if they don't want to do it at home. But I also, because of my traditional background, I'm seeing the need for more focus on postpartum care too, up to 2 years. And I would really love to offer a space that isn't just like support circles, but it's like you can actually come get care postpartum. And it's longer than just 6 weeks, which will be a challenge in Maryland, because right now we're not allowed to care for women beyond 6 weeks. Like, midwives aren't. Certified professional midwives aren't. But I think there's a way that we can get creative and figure out, like, how can we get CNMs or maybe a physician on staff who will still allow me to do what I need to do. I actually just got a grant to start something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's called Reroot the Village, and it's about It's similar to what we would call like village prenatals or like group prenatals, but it goes a step further in that I want it to be intergenerational, in that we host quarterly gatherings with local businesses and local artists contributing. And we provide reproductive education because, believe it or not, I have so many elders on the Eastern Shore who are like, I don't know what's happening with me. I'm not having babies anymore, but I know this is happening. How do I take care of my health? How are my kidneys related to my reproductive health? And like, I'm constantly having swelling. Like, what can I do? And I give them remedies and they work. I want it to be intergenerational where we're able to just exchange wisdom. There will be opportunities for people who are pregnant to, have the baby listened to if you want vitals done by midwives there. But I really want to start the whole village prenatals again with Reroot the Village so that we can not only give people care, but like really rebuild our community and like really reroot ourselves in traditions that work and that can bring us together.
What are your 4 top emojis?
I love the mermaid one because that's also representative of me. I'm a water being. Mermaids are. Pisces. I'm very much Pisces. Yeah. So are you. Mermaids are ethereal beings, right? Like they're kind of mythical, maybe. Sometimes misunderstood. But also just very much. They're not seen unless they want to be seen. Even if you take like the mythical approach, mermaids are very much like these entities that are very autonomous, very beautiful, very watery, and just mystical and majestic that I really, really like. That they're able to vacillate between the earth, but also the spiritual world and the underworld and the deep oceans and things. So I resonate with that too. Like if I could be a mermaid, I would be right now. I love whales. The more I learn about whales and how they midwife themselves during birth and how ancient they are and how far they're.
I don't know how they midwife
themselves.
Tell me more about that. I have no idea about whales and how they give birth and support each other.
Yeah. So similar to elephants too. Like they actually gather, like they can tell when another whale is about to give birth and they'll actually gather around and support the whale mom, whatever that term is, are essentially holding that space the same way traditional midwives would be there to hold the space because they're not really doing the work for the woman, right? They're there to hold the space, to be the guardian of that space, to hold that threshold, to welcome the baby in. Whales do the same thing. Same with elephants. When an elephant is about to give birth, they all corral around her and face outward to protect the pregnant elephant and the calf until the calf is able to get up and start walking on its own. I find that to be very interesting. And they're old. Like whales are very, very ancient. They're very territorial, very protective, but also very gentle and loving. And they are similar to mermaids, just very majestic.
We are loving these emojis. Give us another one.
Full moon. I was born 4 days after the full moon. And I've always resonated with the moon, but was taught that it's demonic to do that. So once I left that ideology growing up and returned to spirituality, I realized like, no, I was right. Like there's a reason I'm connected to the moon. There's a reason why our midwives were connected to the moon. And we're connected also just to the weather in general. Like they say, if a baby is born when it's raining or a baby is born under a full moon or it's snowing, all of those things have significance. It's not just a coincidence. And so accepting my fascination with the moon and the mysteries of the moon make me who I am and also help me understand how I practice.
You're such an artist. That's what
I'm such an artist.
How does your role as a midwife influence your perspective on bodily autonomy and informed consent?
Oh, that is juicy. So for legal purposes, I can't call myself like a licensed midwife, right? But I will say, I do believe that you have to become a midwife before you get a piece of paper that says so. So That is why I do call myself that now. Starting with informed consent, that is something a lot of people don't understand. Like they think that they can just say they're going to do something to someone and that's informed consent. And that's not true. And I think part of why I like midwifery is that we're not just telling you what we're going to do to you or telling you what's going to happen. It's all about let's be collaborative, right? Let me present you with the options based on your your assessment, right? Like, because we do have to do assessments. I don't care what anyone says. You do have to assess that someone can have an out of hospital birth and that everything will go, as well as it can be. Like, you don't anticipate any emergencies, So it's like once you get results back and like you're assessing things, it's important to just talk to them. Like, okay, this is what it is. This is the situation. These are the options. This is my scope of practice. If this happens, then this is what I will recommend. And still leaving it in the hands of the parents to decide what is best for them, even if I don't agree. And that's the part that I think some midwives I've worked with actually struggle with, is that we struggle with ego. We think that because we have more knowledge and we can kind of know based on our experience how things will go for a certain family, that we can just tell them what to do and they're just supposed to agree. And if they don't agree, oh, they're just defiant. They're not listening to me. They don't really care about their children. And it's like, that's not it. Sometimes people have different competency levels. Just because you tell someone something doesn't mean they interpreted what you said the way you wanted them to say it. So maybe we need to switch it up a little bit. Maybe there's a language barrier. Maybe there's like other things. So this is bringing up a lot. I just went through this with a few midwives, but I think informed consent is something that people need to take more seriously, especially if you're calling yourself a midwife, because we're supposed to be collaborative. We're supposed to be with families, with women, with people. It's not just that we're being paternalistic and just telling people because we think we know best. If someone makes a decision we don't agree with, we have the option to walk away. We can just say, I hear you. I'm not comfortable handling that. Like if someone came to me and was like, I still want to have this baby and it's breech, I respect that. I will find you someone who can do that for you. But as for me in my house, I don't feel comfortable doing that, nor am I legally allowed to in Maryland. Right now that I'm accepting my possible neurodivergence and meeting clients who are neurodivergent and don't speak English as their first language and maybe don't even have a high school education, is like, maybe we need to change how we're explaining this, because we're using terminology for someone who may be at a graduate school level and may only speak English and may not be, neurodivergent. Like maybe we need to check ourselves and how we're communicating so that we were actually able to give competent care and actually give informed consent.
You are someone who is willing to direct them to the right person. I love that.
Yeah, we should be, because there's enough work for everybody. There's enough work for all of us to eat. And I don't like when I see people who take on clients they don't like personally, that they really just don't like them and they just want to, talk badly about them in between their prenatal appointments. It's like, well, then why did you even take them on if you don't like them? It's because they need the money. I get that. But it's not right. And it's going to cloud your judgment and how you do care. And I just don't subscribe to this belief that you have to accept anyone who comes in the door, because I have done that when I was a doula and I hated it. Like that's what made me want to leave. It was just like, I did not want these clients and I knew that, but I took it on because I was afraid someone else wasn't going to come and I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent. And when I lived with that scarcity mindset, it still happened though. Like I was still afraid, but once I released and realized like, no, there's enough for everybody. And there's a reason why we need a network, is so that I can refer people. I need to know what everyone's strengths are and skill sets are, because our community depends on it. I don't need to be the end all be all for everybody. That's too much pressure. And I don't want to put myself in jeopardy of causing harm and worse, death, or subjecting myself to criminal liability, civil liability. Like There's just things I can prevent. Like, so why not pass it on to someone who I trust and still be there? Like, maybe I could be, an assistant. I could assist that midwife in that birth, and maybe I could still be there as a support, but not be the primary. And that is okay too.
How do you define the role of a medicine woman in today's world, and how does it differ from conventional medicine?
This is something I teach in my class. I'm going to be offering it again, hopefully in the summer and also in the fall. So if you just subscribe to my Substack and follow me there, you'll get all the information about the 2-part series. It's a class that is a collection of my own research and initiations over the years of seeing the parallels between what we do in our spiritual practices and religion, because we talk about Christianity too. We talk about hoodoo, we talk about lukumi and other practices that I have actually participated in, as well as how that translates into midwifery, and also how and why the title midwife was sometimes a cover up for people who were actually medicine women, who were actually healers and conjurers. And the reason why a lot of folks chose that title is because it was such a societal, like it was a status symbol in the Black community, right? Not just in the US, but around the world. Like to be called a midwife and to have the community know you as a midwife, that was like an ultimate title of respect and value and trust and protection as well. And so even with, if you take it back to enslavement times too, midwives, especially Black midwives, were revered so much and respected and trusted so much that they were actually given access to other areas that were inaccessible to other enslaved people. So they were able to move freely, way more freely than other folks, because they needed them to catch these babies. They were trusted. They were usually older. They were seen as more nurturing. So they were like, yeah, you can kind of have a little bit more liberty, a little bit more freedom than some of these other folks. And because of that, they were actually able to be part of networks that could pass along messages, that could pass along codes, that were able to collect placentas and umbilical cords and use them as forms of protection for families, as divination tools, and medicine as well. So we get into all that in my class, but that is just a little bit of how the term midwife has always been a term of value. And that because of that, people who may have caught like a few babies, they would catch like a baby or two a year because they knew it. They called themselves midwives, but really they were practicing like hoodoo, or they were practicing voodoo, or they were practicing different types of medicine that allowed them to access the spiritual world and not be demonized for it, because they could just call themselves a midwife. Like, I'm just a midwife. And then people are like, okay. But if they called themselves a conjurer or a root doctor or like a mambo, they're like, you can't do that, So that's why I say I am a traditional midwife and a medicine woman, because I have reconciled the two within myself of realizing, like, yes, there are times when I'm acting in this role as a traditional midwife, and then there are times when I'm just a strict medicine woman in my garden.
You consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
I'm ambivert, but I realize I can be very extroverted when I'm around the right people, like very extroverted. And I actually need people too. That's part of the reason why I'm excited to be back with loved ones now, is that I need to be around people sometimes, even if we're not talking. I just need to hear or have some type of an exchange. Not all the time, but helps me relate to people more. Like being able to be on, with families as I need to pretty much anytime is important. And it also helps me to pay attention. Like, because I'm an introvert, I'm also very observant, of others. And because I'm an extrovert, and at the same time, I can kind of like move in spaces and kind of shift energies too. So I like being an ambivert because it allows me to kind of be in both worlds and kind of see see what's really going on, see what people aren't saying, but also see what I need out of that space. And I don't feel bad about having to step away when I need to step away.
You've given me so much information. Like I'm so happy to share this collaboration with others.
Likewise, this was a beautiful conversation. I'm excited to see how we can have another one soon.
Thank you for hanging out with us today on the Birth Nerds podcast. Come swing by our shop for merch that speaks your language. From stickers to gear made just for birth workers and also people who support others. It's all there waiting for you. And if you want to stay in the loop, subscribe to our emailing list for updates, exclusives, and a whole lot of nerdy birth love straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep nerding out and birth with us.